So I suppose to begin with, Stephen, if you could just introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Steve Doyle. I work in the IoT program in GSMA. So we're working with operators on all things related to IoT, from the radio technologies through security. And my particular area is what do you do with the data once you've got it? So areas like big data, machine learning, and so on.
So to begin with, we'll obviously go with a high-level question, I suppose. So ideally, what could the multitude of data that the Internet of Things is set to offer deliver?
So I think the main thing is, because you have so much more data being generated, you've got all of those connections between things that you've never really identified before. So huge data sets which, if you work carefully and make sure that you don't compromise privacy and so on, that you can start to pull conclusions out of, say, all the IoT devices will be recording what energy, what voltage, and potentially you can pull that information and come up with something new.
And one of the things that Dimitrios mentioned to, I think, both of us when we were chatting, he talked about it actually bleeding into the likes of machine learning, automation, artificial intelligence. Is that something you'd agree with?
Yeah, very much. And this really comes out of the volume of devices. So the GSMA forecast is something like 26 billion IoT devices in 2026. 6 billion of those will be cellular connections. So there's just a huge amount of data, and you really can't be sure of how can you process that much data and be doing it in the right way. So it's something that we've seen. We've done some work with some operators around issues in air quality, and with a whole lot more data and a whole lot more data points, you're inundated with data, and you might think that you know what's happening, but when you're after an unusual outcome, or even more usual ones, machine learning is able to drill through the information and make sense of just the volume of data. And some of the things are around when you have devices from different manufacturers and tolerances, and sometimes they are reporting in very different ways. So how do you actually bring that data together and make sense of it if you're comparing sensor A from manufacturer A with manufacturer B? So yeah, we see machine learning as vital just to crunch that much data. And
who do you feel is best placed to take advantage of the data that's going to be produced?
We do see quite a lot of activity from operators already. Not every operator. I think there's a number of operators who are more attuned to the opportunities with that data. But yeah, we're working with the likes of China Mobile. That AT&T is doing quite a lot of work. Verizon, Telefonica is doing a huge amount of data processing and machine learning as well. So there are operators who are looking at this, and there's also something important we see, which is the mobile network data is also something that the operators have got, and no one else has got that kind of data. So that often provides a context that the IoT data then is useful with.
And do you feel, obviously the criticism, where fair or unfair, is the speed at which mobile operators move? Do you feel operators are attuned to this opportunity, or what more do they need to do?
Yeah, well, it won't be for every operator, and there's a clear investment decision that some operators will look at this and say, well, in order to capitalize on this, we need to build platforms and build teams, and we'll concentrate on the nuts and bolts and connectivity. But we're seeing enough activity amongst operators, and the more major operators who are seeing there as opportunities to be had. I think some of those are forming their ideas still as they're delivering this, and often what we're seeing is the operators picking up on opportunities with sectors that move particularly slowly, even slower, you may say. But if it's governments and cities and large enterprise customers or energy customers, there's those opportunities where the operators can actually accelerate those rollouts. Mm-hmm. So it won't be the same as a Silicon Valley company who's able to turn on a sixpence, but it's definitely operators have got a speed and an ability to deliver these mm-hmm. kinds of services.
And is there any regional split with regard to some areas moving faster than others? The cliches, obviously, South Korea roaring ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen quite a lot of activity in Korea and China. China Mobile has built a massive IoT platform, and they're also moving into some of the analytical services that go off that. I think at the moment we're seeing most every region apart from Africa as moving forward at some pace with different activities. So that's the only real difference to me, and that's not dissimilar from what we see of the IoT rollout too.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about processing data already. I mean, given the massive data that's going to be produced by different kinds of networks, I mean, how substantial a challenge will simply processing it be, I guess?
Yeah, and that will be massive. So there's, and we see this of things like mobile air quality sensors, the IoT ones that we've been able to get, and they are generating readings every 15 seconds or so, which is not as often as they could do, but there's a balance there. So a lot of the data that's there is just the sensor saying, hey, it's the same as last time. So you could reduce the amount of data or look for the exceptional events and then be reporting that up. So that's something that plays well to mobile edge computing as well. So you're filtering your data, you're looking for the key events, and then sending that up to the cloud service. So again that works well from a mobile operator perspective when they're considering edge solutions. Mm-hmm. But the China Mobile have got an IoT platform that they're opening up to developers. So they've got a remarkable number of developers. I can't remember how many, but it is tens of thousands of developers who have access to that platform, and that's accelerating those developers' use of the IoT. Mm-hmm. And once the data is in, then you can reduce it, and you can use the machine learning algorithms to filter through the data as well.
Mm-hmm. And are there changing attitudes with regards to sharing of data, playing nice with one another, I suppose, because operators can be a bit protective, I suppose, of the data that they...
I mean, there's issues around operators won't share, for example, the CDR data outside of their organizations for all sorts of good reasons. It compromises privacy, which is one of the big issues, but it's the sheer quantity of data that's there, and it's what it discloses, and I think you have to assume if enough data is shared, then your competitors will understand where's your network performing well and where's it not, and how to do marketing campaigns. But a lot of, if we're looking at the mobile network data, a lot of the use cases don't require pooling of data from multiple operators. And so you could find one operator who deals with a major retailer like John Lewis, and they're able to give them some stats on what's the IoT devices married up with what's happening with the mobile network in their area, and find some interesting things without privacy issues as well. So there is with the operators a desire to make sure that proprietary information isn't disclosed in doing this, and things are done in a very consensual way with regard to the data that they've got access to, and how the data is used, and that's something that GDPR goes and consolidates really.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously we've talked about the changing face of technology. I mean, coupled with that are operator skill sets, I suppose. I mean, are there the right kinds of skills in place presently in order to deal with the changing face of data?
Definitely in some of the operators we're working with. So we have seen in operators like in Turkey, in the US, Telefonica is a bit of a shining example, and we've done a lot of work with them. And they've established a unit called Luca, which has got a lot of skills in big data and machine learning, and that is addressing problems around network optimization as well as commercial opportunities. So I think it's new and new for a lot of the operators, and it could be challenging to build up the capability and to work out how does it pay for itself. But there's certainly that opportunity to be had. We again, going to the forecasts on market opportunity, we've got some research that was done by Machina, which is showing that in 2026, the market size for connectivity and also services based on IoT is something like $1.2 trillion. So there's an opportunity to be had. There's certainly competition out there, but operators who are geared up in the right way will be able to capture a good part of that market.
Okay. And touched briefly on the privacy issue, obviously happening outside of this room as well at present. Who do you feel has responsibility for handling privacy and security concerns?
Probably separate those out. So on the privacy side, it is very complicated in terms of the whole value chain effectively has the responsibility, and there is if you look at an operator as just a pipe and they're providing connectivity, and a lot of the traffic will be over SSL going forward anyway. So operators will not be looking inside the packets to work out what's going on. The data will travel over their networks. Now, if they have an IoT platform, it then probably comes back in again. But in that case, certainly the operator will not be disclosing the data passing through the network to anyone, and don't see techniques like deep packet inspection being used to kind of sneakily work out what's going on. But the IoT platforms themselves will be very secure in terms of who gets access to that, and it's the developer application. Now, the developers themselves are going to have to build the security, because there's many ways that once you've got data into a platform, the leakage could happen because they haven't bolted everything down properly. So, and I don't think that is so much what Facebook were doing, but that was I had an email last night from Great Western Railway, which was we've had an issue on our platform and you need to change your password. So it's kind of there is the need for any application developer to look at the security. The transportation of data, I mean, certainly we see a big shift to SSL so that you can't intercept the traffic that's going through there. And that is also a complex issue, because you will at some point in the future need to be updating certificates on devices, because SSL is always being attacked as well. So there are those issues. I think some of the complexities are around who actually owns the data in the first place. So if you are an end user, if you're a farmer and you've deployed sensors into a field, if you've bought them, probably the data is yours, but it's probably not personal data. It's what's happening in your field. But you would, I think, still consider that you own the data. If you're leasing something, it gets more complicated. So if you hire a car, who owns the data about your journey when you've hired a car? And I think there's going to be a need for some fairly sophisticated privacy management solutions going forward.
That's quite pressing. I mean,
It is. Yeah.
That needs to have. Are people moving quickly enough, I suppose, to deal with that? Because that affects people today.
It does, and I think GDPR has accelerated that and is making a lot of people take it very seriously. That's not without the challenges that GDPR imposes around understanding what you do and obtaining consent. Consent is potentially challenging if you've got an M2M device. How do you provide the consent for that? I think this is possibly one of the biggest collective challenges that are created by the IoT. So just who owns the data? What's the permissions to share it? What can you do with it? Where can it go? And how do you use that data effectively when you've got things like cross-border controls in GDPR that are potentially restricting the benefit that you can get out of some of the data as well.
And with regards to security, I mean, how concerned are you? How real are the risks? One of the great phrases I think Demetrios said in the conversation with us, he mentioned a zombie botnet army from hijacked devices wreaking havoc, which is a great mental image, I suppose. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's already happened. We've seen that with takeovers of CCTV cameras, and it will continue to happen with people turning out devices that are not properly secured. Now, GSMA, we have our own security team, and we've developed a set of security guidelines, which the feedback has been very good from the industry, that these are tackling the issues that are anticipated at the moment. And that will change over time. We know that will change over time. But some of the things that undoubtedly you'll face is the need to do field upgrades of devices to maintain the security up to the level of whatever the threats are at the time as well. Certainly our security guidelines, we feel, are very strong for helping people get security right. And we're committed to working with that and improving that and working with the operators. So if anyone is interested, we obviously encourage them to look at our website and get involved.
But in terms of education of either consumers or businesses, this is inevitable. Effectively, networks will be attacked, networks will go down.
Yeah.
What can be done in order for the consumers to realize this, I suppose?
Yeah, our activity at the moment is much more focused at the businesses who are building IoT solutions and the education around security as issues and the solutions that can be adopted there. Users and you see exactly the kind of problem that those CCTV cameras had, that they have a default admin username and a default admin password, and people just connect them up and they say, right, job done, and that's okay until someone takes them over. It's difficult because when you're shipping an IoT device, you also don't want to end up it being returned because the users said, no, I can't be bothered with that. It's too complicated to set up. I think within that we see solutions like device management being really helpful, and that's an area that operators can definitely play in. So being able to provision devices and make sure that they're maintained and up to date. So that moves you towards an operator as a managed service provider for IoT devices, for those devices on the operator network, certainly, and potentially beyond as well. So yeah, I think that's one of those ways of the operators adding value to the $4 per month for the IoT connectivity is additional slices for managing the security of it and then providing those application support capabilities on top of that.
Okay, excellent. I think we have time for a couple of questions. I like the excellent stuff, Tom. Just give me a moment.
So I guess a couple of questions. You talked about China Mobile, Telefonica, AT&T, and so on investing in this. So what's the business case? What's the business model? Are they just trying to sell data analytics back to the customers, or is it trying to sell data to third parties?
Yeah, we've been talking with operators for some time. There is a need actually for some of the data preparation, data cleansing, a lot, and that will be something that I think some operators will say, well, we can make a market in processing data and releasing it to the companies that have bought the subscription. But actually, we've seen more activity around operators moving into the analytics space. So yeah, if you look, operators have been doing analysis on their customer bases forever, and the analytical skills that are used there also tend to come across into network optimization and then value-added services. So I think a lot of operators are quite skilled in this area, and they've built platforms and they know how to scale up platforms for delivery of the mobile network. So they're well placed in terms of understanding what they need to do. The business cases we haven't, as GSMA, we kind of keep ourselves away from that side of things. But there's anecdotal evidence from the operators that say, yeah, these are good business lines to go through. So they're services in analytics, and they pay for themselves quite well.
So not necessarily about selling data to third parties, but just doing it for your customer.
Yeah, it's then those services that are offered to the big majors. So it could be an energy company or resale customers. A lot of it, I think, will be government and cities to say, we've got, if you're contracting with us for smart cities, for lighting, then we can build on that with mobile network understanding and say, when do you switch on lights, when do you switch off lights?
Okay, makes sense. The other question, the operators you mentioned are all massive operators. Are the smaller ones doing anything, and can they do anything? Does it need a massive upfront investment?
I think we're having less of a dialogue with those smaller operators, but they can certainly do that. There are opportunities for the majority of operators, and it's not really considering, well, there's three operators and three operators in a country, and if two of them have done a lot of the work, then a third won't have any opportunity, because actually there's so many segments that operators could go for within a country, and the analytic services are, whether they're provided by an operator or an IBM or whoever, but there's such a gap in ability to deliver machine learning type services that there's just a big enough market for all the operators.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions? You've got away scot-free, I believe.
It looks like it, yeah.
Excellent stuff. So I'd just like to thank you, Stephen, for joining us. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.